Hey guys, welcome to Y&R Daily Update YouTube channel. Today's topics: the young and the restless spoilers shocked the tension in Genoa City had reached a boiling point, and Clare Newman found herself standing at the edge of a precipice, one foot teetering on the brink of uncertainty, the other longing to pull away from the chaos that had become her life. She had always relied on the wisdom of those she loved, especially her mother, who had been her rock throughout the years. Her mother's advice had always been clear. Stay true to yourself, trust your instincts, and never let anyone pull you into a game you didn't sign up for. But as Clare stood in the midst of the storm, she realized that these words, while comforting, weren't enough to guide her through the treacherous waters she was about to navigate. It was Victoria, however, who had offered her the kind of advice that resonated deeply. Victoria, ever the strategic mastermind, had reminded Clare of a lesson that Clare's late father, Cole Howard, had often imparted to them both. Sometimes, the right answer is the one you least want to hear, Victoria had said, her tone steady, but there was an undercurrent of something far more personal in her voice. Your father would have told you to trust your gut, Clare. He always believed that the truth had a way of revealing itself even when we tried to avoid it. The words hung in the air, and Clare in that moment could almost hear her father's voice, as if he were standing beside her offering guidance through the chaos. But despite this, despite the wisdom that came from both her mother, 0 hours, 1 minute, and 43 seconds, 0 hours, 2 minutes, and 49 seconds, and Victoria, Clare's world was being upended by forces she hadn't quite anticipated. Audra Charles, the woman whose ruthless ambitions seemed to know no bounds, had once again inserted herself into Clare's life. And this time, she wasn't just stirring the pot. No, Audra had gone a step further. She had kissed Kyle Abbott right there in front of Clare at society. The audacity of it, the cold, calculated way Audra had leaned in to plant that kiss on Kyle's lips, was a slap in the face, a message that Clare had yet to fully process. The sting was undeniable, and Clare's emotions warred within her, but as she stood there, her eyes locked on the scene unfolding before her, she couldn't help but feel a sense of helplessness creeping in. It wasn't just the kiss that hurt, it was what it represented. The manipulation, the power play, the knowledge that Audra was willing to use every tool at her disposal to win back Victor Newman's favor and secure the funding she so desperately needed for her business venture. Vibranti Audra wasn't just playing the game. She was rewriting the rules, bending them to her will, and using Kyle as a pawn in her efforts to get what she wanted. The kiss, in all its passionate intensity, wasn't about love or attraction. It was about business, power, and a calculated move designed to prove to Victor that Audra was still in the game. Still a player worthy of his attention, and most importantly, his investment. Victor Newman was a man whose reputation was built on power and manipulation. A man who knew how to control the lives of those around him with just a few well-chosen words and a calculated move. And now Victor was pushing Audra to do the unthinkable. Use Kyle to get closer to him, to earn back his trust and prove herself as an ally. It was disgusting, Clare thought, the way Victor was willing to sacrifice any semblance of morality in the pursuit of his own interests. He was a man who would use anyone, even those closest to him, as tools for his grand designs. But the real question was, could Victor redeem himself? Clare didn't have the answers. Not yet. She didn't know if he was capable of feeling remorse, of understanding the damage he caused to the people around him. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that Victor was as much a part of the toxic fabric of Genoa City as anyone else, if not more so. And yet, despite the layers of manipulation and deceit that surrounded him, Clare still felt a pull, an inexplicable connection to the man who had shaped so much of her life. Could he truly change? Could he find a way to make amends for the pain he'd caused? Victoria had warned her. She had said that Audra was playing with fire and that Clare, for all her good intentions, needed to be careful not to get burned. Audra is dangerous, Clare, you know that. Don't let her pull you into this. She's looking for a way to tear everything down, and if she can use you, she will. The warning echoed in Clare's mind, but the truth was that Clare couldn't ignore the feeling that something was off. Subscribe our channel for more latest update. She couldn't deny that she was conflicted about what was unfolding in front of her. Audra, for all her bravado, wasn't as invincible as she seemed. She was vulnerable in ways that Clare had yet to fully comprehend. And if Clare could find a way to expose her, to strip away the layers of deceit, maybe, just maybe, she could end this nightmare before it destroyed everything. But Clare wasn't just dealing with Audra. She was also grappling with her own feelings for Kyle. She had always known he was important to her, but now, seeing him in the midst of Audrey's web of manipulation, Clare couldn't help but wonder if she had been wrong about him. Was he truly the man she thought he was? Or had he too been swayed by the intoxicating pull of Victor's world and Audra's charms? Clare's thoughts swirled with uncertainty. She knew that if she confronted Kyle, if she called him out on his actions, there would be no turning back. The damage might be irreparable. And yet, deep down, she knew she had to act. She couldn't stand idly by and watch as Audra pulled everyone around her into her destructive orbit. She had to find a way to make things right, even if it meant sacrificing her own peace of mind. Victor, for his part, remained as enigmatic as ever. His influence stretched far beyond the walls of Newman Enterprises, and his control over people was something few could escape. Audra, with her ambition and cunning, might think she was in control, but Clare knew better. She knew that Victor could and would turn on anyone if it suited his purposes. He had done it before. He would do it again. The question was, would he do it to Audra? Would he turn on her just as he had done to so many others once he had no further use for her? As Clare watched the drama unfold, she couldn't help but wonder if there was a way out for any of them. Was it even possible to break free from the cycle of manipulation, betrayal, and power struggles that defined the world they inhabited? Or were they all doomed to repeat the same mistakes over and over again, trapped in a web of their own making? In the end, Clare realized that she had to trust herself. She had to make a decision, one that would define the rest of her life. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Clare was ready to fight for what was hers, and if she had to tear down the empire that Victor and Audra had so carefully built, she would do it, no matter the cost. Kyle's world had always been defined by chaos, whether it was the undercurrents of power struggles in Genoa City or the personal entanglements that never seemed to stay contained. But this was something different. His father had warned him the same warning that had echoed through his childhood and adolescence. You cannot control people, Kyle. They'll use you in ways you can't imagine, and in the end, it will be you who loses. But Kyle, as always, had brushed off the warning, convinced that he could handle the situation, that he could outsmart Audra and still keep Clare's trust intact. He had never expected this. No, he had never thought for a second that Audra, with all her calculating charm and brazen confidence, would take the risk of kissing him in front of a room full of people. He never expected Clare to see it, and now standing at the edge of the emotional abyss that had opened before him, Kyle realized just how much he had miscalculated. The train ride in the south of France had been a disaster, a momentary lapse in judgment that had spiraled out of control. Kyle could still see it vividly, the unspoken tension, the desire to break free from the suffocating weight of expectations, both his own and those placed on him by others. But what had happened afterward? The kiss from Audra was a reminder of how far off course he had gone. Clare's face when she had witnessed that kiss, her expression of shock and hurt was the image that haunted him. Now it was too late to take it back. The damage was done. What made matters worse was the fact that Kyle hadn't told Clare the full truth. He had kept quiet, not wanting to stir the pot, but in doing so, he had only made it worse. He hadn't explained the situation with Audra, the way she had cornered him, the manipulation that had been at play from the moment they had crossed paths under Victor's watch. He had thought that if he just kept his head down, focused on the work, everything would be fine. But it wasn't. Audra had been playing a game with him all along. She was smart, calculating, and relentless. Kyle had been foolish to think he could control her, to think he could manage the situation while keeping his relationship with Clare intact. It was absurd. He had failed to see the danger Audra posed, and worse, he had failed to see how deep his own involvement had gone. Subscribe our channel for more latest update. The moment Clare had caught Audra's lips on his in the middle of society, it had been the final straw. The look in her eyes when their gazes had locked across the room was one of heartbreak, betrayal, and a quiet fury that Kyle had never seen before. In that moment, he had realized just how deep the hole he had dug for himself truly was. Now Clare was pulling away, retreating into herself, her trust in him shattered. She had every right to be angry, every right to question his loyalty. After all, Kyle had kept secrets that not only involved Audra but also his own failure to communicate with Clare, to give her the honesty she deserved. In the midst of all this turmoil, Kyle found himself reflecting on the advice his father had given him. You think you can handle it all, but eventually you'll find that you can't. He had always dismissed it as nothing more than overprotective rhetoric. But now, in the wake of his mistakes, he was starting to see the truth in those words. He had underestimated the people around him. He had overestimated his own ability to manage the storm brewing within his relationships. And now it seemed like the consequences were coming down hard. Clare, for her part, had made her decision. She wasn't going to stand by a man who couldn't be truthful with her, a man who had allowed himself to become embroiled in lies and deceit. Kyle understood this, even if it hurt to admit it. Clare had always been strong, and she had always placed honesty above all else. To her, the truth was sacred, and now the truth had been twisted, and Clare's heart had been broken because of it. Her decision to distance herself from him was inevitable, and as much as Kyle hated to admit it, he couldn't fault her for it. In fact, he had no one to blame but himself. He had failed Clare in ways that were hard to quantify. He had chosen to let Audra into his life when he should have kept her at arm's length. He had chosen to remain silent about the kiss in France, thinking it would be easier to hide the truth than to face the fallout. And now, he was paying the price. It wasn't just the kiss with Audra, it was everything. The lies, the silence, the failure to see how much Clare needed from him, how much she deserved the truth. Clare was not someone who would settle for half-truths, and Kyle had known that. Yet, he had still allowed himself to be swept up in the whirlwind of Victor and Audra's manipulations, and in doing so, he had allowed his relationship with Clare to deteriorate. As Clare moved forward, pulling away from him with each passing day, Kyle was left to pick up the pieces of his broken trust, but it was too late. He knew that what had happened in France, what had happened with Audra was irreparable. No matter how many apologies he offered, no matter how many explanations he tried to give, the damage had already been done. Clare had made her decision. And Kyle, for all his regrets, was left to face the consequences of his actions. What came next was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The road to redemption would not be easy, and as he watched Clare slip further away, he realized that the path forward might not involve him at all. The latest spoilers from The Young and the Restless reveal a tense and emotionally charged situation unfolding in Genoa City. Centered around Clare Newman, Kyle Abbott, Audra Charles, and Victor Newman, Clare finds herself caught in a complex web of manipulation, power struggles, and personal betrayal. Despite the support and wisdom from her mother and Victoria Newman, Clare is shaken by Audra's ruthless tactics, especially after witnessing Audra kiss Kyle Abbott, publicly a calculated move meant to secure Victor Newman's favor and funding for her business. Audra's ambition and willingness to use others as pawns highlight the toxic environment shaped by Victor's manipulative strategies. Clare struggles to reconcile her feelings for Kyle with the painful reality of his involvement in age schemes. Kyle, who initially believed he could control the situation and protect his relationship with Clare, realizes he has underestimated both Audra's cunning and the damage caused by his silence and deception. His failure to disclose the truth about the kiss and his entanglement with Audra shatters Clare's trust, leading her to distance herself from him. Victor Newman's influence looms large over the events. As he pushes Audra to use Kyle to regain his trust and secure investment, showing his readiness to sacrifice morality for personal gain. Clare questions whether Victor could ever change or redeem himself, but remains determined to fight back against the manipulative forces threatening her life and relationships. As Clare prepares to confront the chaos head-on, Kyle faces the painful consequences of his mistakes. With the future of their relationship uncertain and the path to redemption daunting, Clare Newman is caught in a high-stakes power struggle, fueled by manipulation and betrayal in Genoa City. Audra Charles publicly kisses Kyle Abbott as a strategic move to gain Victor Newman's favor and business funding. Victoria Newman offers Clare crucial advice, reminding her to trust her instincts despite the chaos. Clare wrestles with conflicting feelings about Kyle's loyalty and her own resolve to expose Audra's deceit. Victor Newman exerts his influence ruthlessly, using people as pawns to maintain control and power. Kyle's failure to be honest with Clare devastates their relationship, creating a deep rift. Clare prepares to fight back against the toxic web of manipulation, even if it means destroying the empire built by Victor and Audra. Manipulation as a central theme, the narrative highlights how characters like Victor and Audra manipulate those around them for personal gain. Victor's use of Kyle as a pawn and Audra's public kiss are prime examples of power being wielded through emotional and social manipulation. This reflects the toxic dynamics often present in high-stakes environments where trust is scarce and self-interest dominates. Trust and betrayal dynamics. Claire's heartbreak stems not just from the kiss, but from Kyle's silence and lack of transparency. This underscores the importance of honesty in relationships and how deception, even if initially intended to protect, can irreparably damage trust. Claire's reaction reflects real emotional consequences when partners withhold painful truths. Complex character motivations. Audra's actions, while ruthless, are driven by desperation for survival and success in a competitive business world, illustrating that villainy in such dramas often emerges from layered motivations rather than pure malice. Similarly, Kyle's miscalculations reveal how individuals can be caught in forces beyond their control despite good intentions. Wisdom and guidance as anchors. The advice Clare receives from her mother and Victoria represents the grounding influence of wisdom and experience. Victoria's reminder about trusting one's gut and accepting hard truths is a pivotal moment, highlighting how internal strength and self-trust are crucial when navigating complex emotional and social landscapes. Moral ambiguity of power. Victor Newman embodies the moral ambiguity of power, willing to sacrifice ethics for control, yet maintaining an enigmatic presence that leaves characters and viewers questioning his capacity for redemption. This highlights how power can corrupt but also complicate narratives around forgiveness and change. Cycle of toxicity and redemption. The story raises questions about whether characters trapped in cycles of manipulation and betrayal can break free, or if they are doomed to repeat mistakes. Claire's determination to fight back suggests possible resistance, while Kyle's regrets show the painful cost of failure to change. It presents a nuanced exploration of redemption and personal growth amidst adversity. Female empowerment and resilience. Claire's journey from confusion and hurt to readiness to fight back exemplifies a narrative of female empowerment. Despite the chaos, she resolves to reclaim control over her life, reflecting themes of resilience and agency in the face of overwhelming challenges. This mirrors broader cultural conversations about women standing up to toxic power structures. In sum, this episode arc from The Young and the Restless weaves a compelling tale of emotional intensity, strategic maneuvering, and the personal costs of deception, underscoring the complexities of trust, power, and redemption in the interconnected lives of Genoa City's residents.